I teach the high school physical science to 8th graders at Richards Middle School. And this year I did my project on a mini unit for radiation. The Georgia Standards requires us to teach nuclear fusion and fission and the benefits and applications of nuclear energy. So imagine I'm dressed up in a full white painter's outfit with a mask, and I've got a real Geiger counter in my hand. I've got background noise, and I'm testing the students for radiation as they walk into my classroom. And they're completely freaked out thinking, what is going on? What happened to my class? So they come in and they have no idea what to expect. And that day we did a bunch of interactive notes on radiation, on the Geiger counter. I was able to introduce what a radium clock was, and they got to test it out with an actual Geiger counter. Day 2 happened to be the anniversary of Chernobyl. That was April 26th. So what I did was I used an article from Nat Geo that gave a little more history insight into Chernobyl. I used Google Expeditions, and we used the Google Cardboard. So we did a virtual field trip in the city of Pripyat to see how sort of the fallout affected that community. Day 3, they were given a project for radiation that they had to complete and present in class. So the project required them to figure out how much nuclear energy was actually used in the US, advantages and disadvantages of nuclear energy. They had to figure out what they believed to be the most successful waste disposal method, and they had to include a map. And I didn't tell them which map to include. They had whatever choice they wanted to Google. But it was very interesting to see what type of maps they actually chose. Finally, on the 4th day, I had students them complete the tabletop Georgia map. They had to color in all of the freshwater sources, identify the 2 nuclear power plants in Georgia, and then highlight where we live. So based on this large map and several smaller maps, such as the seismic hazards, population density, annual precipitation, and several cultural and historical maps, I had them trying to identify where the most likely place for disposal sites would be. And so it was really engaging to see what their decisions were. So what I want you to do is, using these maps, where do you think we should have our disposal site in Georgia that's going to have the least effect on people and the environment?
I have to say around the area close to like South Carolina, because on this map, there's not many historic sites. On this map, there's not much population. There's enough amount of rainfall here, and yeah.
So you're saying like close to Columbus?
Yeah, around that.
I'm thinking like somewhere in Baker County, because it seems like in Georgia population there's it's the lightest, so there's probably not many people living there. So if there was ever a contamination, it wouldn't hurt people. On the annual precipitation, on the top of the county seems is one of the lightest, so it wouldn't have much rainfall that could contaminate the radioactiveness. And it doesn't seem as there are any important historical sites there that it could damage.
And then after they kind of came up with their final decisions, I showed them a final map of where the disposal sites are actually located. And it was really interesting to see their perspective on where the locations actually were. So this entire mini unit took about 4 to 5 days total. It included the global scale when we were looking into Chernobyl. It included the regional scale when they were researching the nuclear waste sites and nuclear energy use in the US. And it included the local scale when we were using the tabletop Georgia map to identify possible disposal sites. In terms of perspective, they looked at economics, how much electricity was formed from nuclear waste. We looked at environmental hazards from waste disposal. We looked at health hazards from radiation. And we looked a little bit into political too when we talked about transporting waste all the way from Georgia to Yucca Mountain. So this is the first time that I have not done pen and paper for radioactivity. And it was really interesting to see that even with a short amount of time, the students were able to grow in awareness, curiosity, questioning, even problem-solving skills. So perhaps it'll be one of my students that comes up with the best solution for nuclear waste disposal in the future.